Hey, welcome you guys to the Cannabis Minority Report powered by the National Cannabis Industry Association, one of the largest trade associations in the cannabis industry to date. I am your host, Khadijah Adams, co-founder of Girl Get That Money and founder of the Green Street Academy. We're here with our weekly check-in and interviews with minority-owned companies in the cannabis space, as well as companies that support social equity applicants, as well as cannabis industry leaders and pioneers. Joining me today are my co-hosts, Ms. Alexis Olive of OliveYou Media and Ms. Margeaux Bruner of Perpetual Harvest Sustainable Solutions, along with our very special guest, Niambe McIntosh, the daughter of Grammy Award-winning musical genius, the late Peter Tosh, who, by the way, was also an advocate for equal rights and a pioneer for cannabis legalization. Niambe is also the sister of the late Jawara McIntosh, who followed in his father's footsteps. When we return from our commercial, we'll catch you up on the latest news about minorities in the cannabis industry, and we'll be speaking with Niambe to learn more about her journey into the cannabis industry, find out how racial injustice has impacted her family, and we'll learn more about the Peter Tosh Foundation right after these messages.
We need to make sure that we get minorities and African Americans, people that have been affected by the war on drugs, indigenous people, brown and black people holistically needs to be a part of this conversation. With the help of NCIA and being an Evergreen member, we believe that we could push this agenda forward. Cannabis business owners, entrepreneurs that really see the bigger picture to say, let's push this agenda forward. We can't do this without you. We need to make sure that our voices are heard.
Hey guys, the MJBizDaily launches a survey. They launched a survey on women and minorities in cannabis. I did participate in the survey, but the reason they launched the survey is to assess the state of women and minority leadership in cannabis. The information will form the underpinning of the third edition of Women and Minorities in Cannabis report available. It's going to be available this fall. In addition to providing metrics and around participation, the team at MJBizDaily will examine where the barriers to participation still exist and provide resources for overcoming the challenges. Now, owners, founders, and executives with dispensaries or retail stores, commercial cultivation operations, infused products, as well as vertically integrated businesses and investors are encouraged to participate in the survey. They're actually going to keep it open until July the 28th. So go to MJBizDaily.com to get more information about the 2021 Women, Minorities, and Cannabis Survey. And then next, New Leaf Project. I've been doing a lot of research about New Leaf Project and their new project called Work. You know, New Leaf's project, their mission is to build intergenerational wealth via the legal cannabis industry for communities that's disproportionately harmed by cannabis legalization or cannabis criminalization. Black, Indigenous people, as well as Latino and Latinx communities as well. So their programs are actually designed to increase success outcomes for people of color in the cannabis industry, either as business owners or professionals. And they're actually working specifically to address the three most common equity hurdles for marginalized groups when starting businesses or professional careers: capital, education exposure, and connection. So they provide funding for cannabis businesses, skill building and mentoring for entrepreneurs and professionals, national and state equity policy development and advocacy. So for more information about that, go to newleafproject.org/the work. And then finally, my portion of the news, we've been looking at Illinois for a long time. And Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the HB 1443 into law finally. And the intention of this bill, though, is to fix the state's cannabis dispensary lottery system that completely left out Black people, okay, completely. And so they said it was some type of glitch or whatever, but needless to say, they're fixing it. So the state will distribute 185 licenses to operate adult use cannabis dispensaries through those lotteries. And they're going to be starting July 29th. So I'm going to pass it over to Alexis for her latest highlights and news with cannabis and minorities.
Awesome. So a new study released Friday by the American Association for Advancement of Sciences suggests that their findings that the origin of domestication of cannabis sativa is actually in East Asia rather than Central Asia, where they previously thought it was. So all the existing strains of the plant come from this ancestral gene pool. So that's being seen in wild and cultivated varieties throughout China today. And they also found that this was primarily a multi-purpose crop grown about 12,000 years ago during the Neolithic period, mostly used for fiber and the medicinal benefits. So yes, that's pretty awesome. Thank your Asian ancestors if you are Asian, and we thank your Asian neighbor today. So Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, he spoke with CNN about Senator Schumer's cannabis bill he's attempting to pass with Senator Rob Wyden and Cory Booker. So in response, Dr. Murthy said that we really must keep researching the benefits as well as the side effects of cannabis and make sure that the science is keeping up with the widespread legalization. However, he did say, I quote, "When it comes to decriminalization, I don't think there is value to individuals or to society to lock people up for marijuana use. I do not think that serves anybody well." And now back to Illinois. Illinois efforts to decrease the rise in violence by using tax dollars from the booming cannabis industry to give back to communities. So data from the Chicago PD does show a large spike in violence during the summer months. And so to combat this, the Illinois officials are investing $3.5 million from the state's marijuana tax towards organizations that are promoting activities and education to the inner city youth. So these grants are going to support summer programs from July 1st to September 30th and come from the Restore, Reinvest, and Renew program, which was part of the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. And quote from Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, "We have to address the root cause of violence and invest in communities and people who deserve more resources and opportunities than they have been historically given." All right, so now we're going to go into a commercial break, and when we return, we're going to be speaking with Niambe McIntosh to learn about her journey into the cannabis industry and find out how racial injustice has impacted her family. And we're going to learn more about the Peter Tosh Foundation right after these messages.
I am the cannabis industry.
I am the cannabis industry.
I am the cannabis industry.
I am the cannabis industry. I am the cannabis industry.
We are the cannabis industry.
And we are proving that regulation works.
As we are back with our very special guest, Ms. Niambe McIntosh. She is the youngest child of the revolutionary musician and activist, Mr. Peter Tosh. As the executor of the Peter Tosh estate and brand, Niambe, has stepped up to the mantle to carry on her father's message and legacy. As the managing member of the Tosh Holdings LLC, board chairperson for the Peter Tosh Foundation, and president of PT Capital LLC, she wears a lot of hats. She was born in Kingston, Jamaica, and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, in which she calls both her home. She received her bachelor's degree in engineering. Welcome to the Cannabis Minority Report. It is an honor to have you on our show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So can you tell us more about you, about your journey into cannabis, and what led to the Peter Tosh Foundation being founded by you and your family members in 2017?
Well, actually, prior to me getting into kind of all of that, I was in education and transitioned from education, or really pretty much added on to that responsibility by taking over my father's estate in 2010. And so, since then it was, a journey of learning and really learning through the School of Hard Knocks about just the music industry and kind of how to capitalize an estate. But one thing that we knew that was really important for us to do was to launch a foundation in his name. He, his music was his tool. He's a founding member of the Wailers, went on to have a solo career and launched his solo career with the album Legalize It, which has been now known to be the anthem for the legalization movement for the past, 40 plus years. So it was only right that we have our kind of business model kind of grounded in this foundation and then get into the cannabis space that way.
Got it. So, gosh, it's pretty interesting. I had so many questions to ask you. So, how is cannabis actually viewed in Jamaican culture?
Ironically, people that know my dad and his music, like if you Google him, any picture you see him with, he has and he'll have a spliff in his mouth, he'll have a pipe, and so many people would assume that it's just something that you can easily do. But the irony is that he actually faced a lot of police brutality and was targeted by the police often in Jamaica for that stance. He believed personally and understood that the plant had these medicinal powers, and even sung about it in the music in the 1970s. But contrary to what people may think, Jamaica was colonized by Britain. And so a lot of those Western views have been kind of embedded into the fabric of that society. And so it was often negatively viewed. And it was the culture of Rastafari that really embraced the plant and understood the medicinal values, and then used reggae music to be the tool to share that message with the world.
Wow. And you speak so eloquently. I can tell that you're an educator. Like she has no nervousness at all. You're actually speaking, it's just flowing. So let me ask you, how has racial injustice in the cannabis industry impacted your family directly? And was this the incident that ignited your passion to seek justice and continue your father's legacy?
That question has definitely a lot of layers. And so we knew that it was only right that we have a brand in my father's name, due to his activism, and being that founder really in the movement of legalization. So many people didn't even know about cannabis. They found out about cannabis through reggae. But my journey in kind of running the estate, it was actually when my family was personally impacted by cannabis prohibition and the war on drugs. And we've had the liberty of not having it so close to home. But in 2013, My brother Jawara, who is musically known as Tosh One, he's my father's youngest son, was arrested for cannabis possession in New Jersey. And we originally thought that it would be something that would kind of go, just go away. He had never been involved in the criminal justice system before. He's a father of four, an activist, a musician. And we thought it'd be something that would just get behind us pretty soon. But it wasn't until the hearing in that year, in September, when I heard the prosecution, my family pretty much all drove down to New Jersey, and we heard the prosecution offer a 20-year plea. And
Wow.
that's when we realized that this was, way bigger than what we thought it would be. He actually made bail that year, but then went back and forth for pretrial motions for about 3 years. They would first say, 15 years is the best that you're going to get. You should definitely accept the plea. Then it'll go down to 10 years. And we were torn as a family. We wanted to fight for what we believed in. We understand the plant to be a sacrament and part of our culture, but at the same time, we know the legacy of New Jersey and their predatory practices, around cannabis and their criminal justice system. And so in 2016, the end of 2016, my brother took a plea of 5 years and was told that he would probably serve a year and it would be behind him after that. In 2017 of January, he turned himself in, and a month later, he was attacked by another inmate, brutally attacked, where he suffered a traumatic brain injury and was unable to do anything for himself. And it was 2017.
So sorry.
It was 2017 of February, which is when I knew that my family's life was forever changed. He was in the ICU for 3 months. We were told that we weren't able to visit him. We actually got a call from a surgeon that was trying to perform a life-saving medical procedure. When we got to the hospital, they told us that he's a ward of the state and that we don't have the right to visit him. They knew the name, the prison, and I think that's what allowed us to see him. But that initial sight was him with tubes in his throat, half of his dreadlocks, cut off from surgery. He's in the ICU room, and he had a handcuff around his ankle, and he was surrounded by correctional officers. And this is someone who, even described in jail, they were just like, he was like a preacher. He would sing and he would read the Bible, and he tried to just get that time passed as quickly as possible. But that really was the turning point. Unfortunately, my brother lost his life and succumbed to his injuries last year, and over the past kind of 3 years, the war on drugs, these phrases that we kind of hear, or convict or people that have been impacted by the war on drugs, that's been something that I think we've had to shed more light on, because we lose sense of who the families are that are affected. It's been thrown around all the time. And so that's been really what has ignited my fire to really get into the activism. We've launched the Peter Tosh Foundation, and we have an initiative called Justice for Jawara, where it was really about sharing his story. And then has since launched a cannabis brand, Seen by Peter Tosh, where we're working to just really make sure that a certain 10% of the proceeds go back to the foundation so that we can continue to do the work that my father sung about in his music, and also just, bring social justice awareness to the rest of the country and the world.
Wow. Well, first of all, gosh, our condolences for sure. And my heart goes out to you and your family. Margeaux.
Yes, definitely condolences. It's so bittersweet because your father's name is associated with consumption and enjoyment, and then his legacy, his namesake,
is on the complete opposite side of that, and the harshness and the reality of the lack of legalization. With all of that, encompassing all of that, what does social justice mean to you? Like, what is equitable?
You know, I think I get very deep when I think about that because as an educator, I know how important education is. So social justice, really, I think about it in multiple facets. I think about it from just, people that they now there's regulations like those that have been impacted by the war on drugs. They have, some sort of fast track system to being able to get into the industry. But unfortunately, due to the trauma that so many of us has faced, that's a major barrier. And so I think that social equity not only looks like opportunities for the selected few, but it also looks like opportunities for the masses, that aren't going to have the acumen to kind of get into the industry, but they still have been hurt by the war on drugs and still need wraparound services and still need opportunities. So it's a broader, it looks like reparations, really. It looks like systematic reparations so that people can have more opportunities, nationally, because the damages are immense. That it's something that it's going to take a lot of work to really right the wrong.
Yes. So what are the tenets of the Peter Tosh Foundation, and how do we pay homage to that?
Yes, well, we have the petertoshfoundation.org. Right now we have 5 initiatives. Justice for Jawara, obviously was, really sharing my brother's story and bring awareness to the our failed criminal justice system, and why the need for federal legalization is so important. We have a platform that we were able to kind of share my brother's story on, but, we represent, thousands of families that don't have that platform and who have, faced so many harsh situations. And so that's really important. And then we have the Legalize It initiative, where it's really about that education piece. It's about inclusion within the cannabis space. We work really greatly with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I'm on that board, and expungement clinics. Doing some of that work that's important to have more Black and brown faces within the cannabis space. And then we have an Equal Rights and Justice initiative where we partner with global around the globe. My father had a love for Africa, and we're always looking for community projects, that we can partner and support there. And then we have the Peter Tosh Museum, which we founded in 2016, and that's in Kingston, Jamaica. And we just want to make sure that we can continue to develop and expand the museum as well. And then there's the Can't Blame the Youth initiative, because as an educator, I understand that bridging that gap and imparting my father's, wisdom onto the next generation and his philosophies are so important. So we do a lot of workshops with young people around the globe.
So many different verticals within or up under the Peter Tosh, foundation. It's amazing. And you're absolutely right when you say, it was only right, to have a brand in your father's name. I mean, honestly, I couldn't see it any other way. I mean, he really helped this industry, and you're absolutely right. His song, we used to jam off that song, and a lot of us at the time, we didn't, and well, I'll speak for myself. Let me just be clear. My little sister would get on me all the time because I couldn't understand the patois. And she goes, just listen to the music, just listen. And so we turned it up and we would just listen and jam. And she goes, he's talking about weed. He's talking about legalizing it. And I'm like, what? And that was really the first time, we had heard it in music, in a way that was accepted, and you would see people dancing from wherever they were from, it didn't even matter. And they were jamming along with it and singing the lyrics to the song.
Yep.
Still to this day. So thank you so much for that. We're going to turn the mic over to Miss Alexis because I know she has some questions for you too. You're on mute, Alexis.
Yeah, so my question is, throughout the last few generations, for sure, communities of color have really built become afraid of cannabis in a way because of all the injustices. But how important would you emphasize the re-education of this medicinal plant to our communities?
Extremely, extremely important. So many people don't realize that there was, a century of propaganda and misinformation. And so they're so apprehensive to even just mention the word, cannabis or marijuana or weed or whatever they call it. But we have an endocannabinoid system. We have a system that cannabis can connect to and really help our body become balanced and reach homeostasis. And so the education piece, especially with me being as an educator, that's why we through our foundation we're doing workshops with senior communities. We're doing workshops just in general about just introducing people to just the fundamental properties of the plant. My father he had a song called Bush Doctor, where not only did he say that cannabis was good for a failing economy, it was good for, but he also said it was good for asthma, that was 40 years ago that he mentioned even the word. I saw an interview where he did a public service announcement for NORML, a national organization for marijuana reform laws. And, he used the word endocannabinoid system. And I'm like, how did you even know that? That many years ago. But it's so important and just in a holistic way that we understand our bodies and holistically how we can use plants to kind of help us. We're in a pretty bad state of health as a country. And whatever resources we have, cannabis should be something that we turn to first, because the track record for our pharmaceutical company hasn't been that one that we can fully trust.
Exactly. And, you said the word earlier, reparations, like we need to start saying that more often, right? And so my next question is, so you're in the New England, Boston area, that's your home. And recently, it's just boomed with legalization up there, right? How do you see the next 5 years of the cannabis industry in New England, or if you want to talk about nationally, what does that look like for you?
The trend right now is not matching up what the regulators have on paper, as far as social equity and inclusion. I think that Massachusetts has done a great job taking the time to kind of write the regulations and listen to the community and make a point to be inclusive in the language. But there's still that disconnect. Things cost money at the end of the day until these states are very intentional about supporting people, not just to get the license, but the money to have a thriving business. Privilege has, people that come into the industry with affluent backgrounds, childcare is taken care of. Certain things that when you're just starting a business and have been impacted by the war on drugs, which means that you're coming from an economic deficit, all of the little things that we take for granted really become barriers for you to just do your day-to-day job to make your company thrive. So I hope that, my hope is that states really understand what it takes for for our Black and brown businesses to thrive and really bridge the gap with financial resources.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just getting in there, it's staying in there, right? And being able to compete and survive. Well, this has been really great. We had so many questions we wanted to ask you, and it's so wide ranging, but is there any last tidbits that you want to give our audience that you would like them to know?
Definitely. If anyone is interested in just learning more about my dad and the foundation, you can go to petertosh.com. We're all over social media. And so at Peter Tosh on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. And then also for more about the foundation, it's www.petertoshfoundation.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Margeaux, do you have any last questions?
Yes, one last question. What states will the brand be in?
We're looking to spread it nationally. You know, where we have legalization is where you should see the Tosh name.
Nice.
In Jamaica, consumption is so tied to just wellness and wisdom. I would be really excited to see that.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited as well.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to definitely go to Arizona, California, or somewhere so I can get my supply, because y'all know Texas is dry. It is nowhere near legal over here. And they were like, well, we're medically legal. I'm like, yeah, come on.
Got tumbleweed out in Texas. That's all we
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you. You're welcome to stay on for a little bit. We're going to wrap up with our mission and also just make some local announcements at this time. So the mission of the DEI committee is to educate, to advocate, and to engage and empower the community of cannabis and its members by cultivating partnerships with other nonprofit organizations with similar goals, providing resources, and also to create and sustain an environment that is not only inclusive, but equitable and diverse. We're committed to building a culture that respects our members and celebrates their contributions as we work together to strengthen all communities in the cannabis space. Now, just the latest updates, you guys, don't forget, September 22nd and 23rd is our Midwest Cannabis Business Conference. Early bird specials are taking place right now. Go to MidwestCannabisConference.com. And December 7th and 8th, we're in Baltimore at the Eastern Cannabis Business Conference. For more information, go to EasternCannabisBusinessConference.com. And then finally, our Cannabis Business Summit takes place December 15th through the 17th in San Francisco, California. For more information about that, go to CannabisBusinessSummit.com. Special shout out to our DEI program sponsors, Taiho Wellness Center, as well as the law offices of Omar Figueroa and Copper State Farms. We'd like to thank you also, Margeaux Bruner and Alexis Olive for being with us. And Niambe, we definitely would love to have you back again. And let us know when your brand drops everywhere, especially closer to Texas. Where would that be? Oklahoma. Yeah, I can run over to I can run over to Oklahoma. Don't forget, you guys, download the NCIA's app. You guys, we have a mobile app, so go ahead and download it. Do you know anyone that you believe that we should be interviewing right here on the Cannabis Minority Report? Drop me a line at info@KhadijahAdams.com. Until then, you guys, peace, love, and hippie stuff.
NCIA's Cannabis Minority Report is a product of the National Cannabis Industry Association and NCIA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We are hosted every week by Khadijah Adams. Our executive producers are Aaron Smith and Vince Chandler. We are directed by Vince Chandler and produced by Bethany Moore and Alexis Olive. Please, please, please find out everything you can about the growing and equitable cannabis industry at thecannabisindustry.org.